As many of you know, I have been slow rolling my 2025 HellHades free-to-play challenge account. And one of the strategies that I decided to employ early on was to save my resources and target the very first fusion that became available. Well, here she is. Her name is Esme the Dancer. She is the February fusion, and she's the first opportunity I have on my challenge account, or you have on yours, to pursue a fusion. But the combination of the champion and the scheduling for this event have created some questions in my mind. It may actually be more beneficial to skip this fusion on my challenge account than complete it. I have the resources. I could do it, but I'm going to break down my thinking for you in today's video. So hopefully that will help you make your decision about whether or not to pursue this champion. And maybe it'll help me decide finally whether or not to go for Esme the Dancer or look for other opportunities. I am Colred. This is Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends free-to-play challenge. Let's get started. Just a quick reminder to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and consider joining our Discord community. Also, don't miss my next Takeover Tuesday live stream. I go live at 2 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, February 11th. I hope to see you there. Now, we know that Esme is going to be a fragment fusion event, and it will start on Monday, February 10th. Earlier in this week, I put out a video where I speculated that the fusion event might start on Thursday, the 6th. Now, a lot of people disagreed with that, but I'm going to explain a little bit of my reasoning because it will impact how we view this fusion. 90% or 95% of fusions start on Thursdays. In addition to that, we have a champion chase tournament here, or maybe it's an event. It is a tournament, a champion chase tournament at the end of this Tea Party Titan event. And it's not uncommon now for Plarium to overlap Titan events and fusion events. That's just something that they've started to do in the past 6 months or so. So I thought this might happen. If it did, I would actually be pretty excited about it. I think this would have been a friendly fusion for us to pursue, especially on our challenge accounts, for a whole bunch of reasons. One is if you've started a challenge account on the day or the day after the event launched, you will be collecting your Haikatune during this champion chase tournament. So there are some free points there. In addition, you have access maybe to your Morag. I have 2 copies of Sabbatha from the Mad Hatter fusion that I've collected as well. She's still in my fragment collector, so I could have collected her during this champion chase. And between that and the 2x Void Shard event that we're expecting to launch this weekend, we would have a lot of ways to get tons of points for this champion chase. And that would have potentially allowed us to complete this champion chase without needing to dip into our sacred shards. Now, that would have been really nice because how do you typically complete summon rushes? Well, it's with sacred shards. You usually need at least, say, 5 plus some mystery shards, or maybe even 6. But if you want to go for the complete summon rush, you typically need 11, right? So you need to do one of these 2 events completely. You need to complete a champion chase and do half a summon rush, or do half a champion chase and a complete summon rush. And it's just easier to complete the champion chase under these conditions than pretty much any other conditions that we could get. But now what's happening is this champion chase will not be part of the fragment fusion. We're starting on Monday. This happens very rarely. And that means that we won't have a shard event until the end of the first week. We will have a summon rush likely on Friday the 14th. That's probably when we're going to have the summon rush. And then the following weekend, we will have another champion chase. Now, during that champion chase, it will likely be a 2x Sacred Shard event. So completing that champion chase might also be easy, but you're going to have to do that entire champion chase. Which means, how do you complete the summon rush that is coming next Friday, February 14th? Because you're going to have to hold your sacred shards for that following event, and you're going to have burned your void shards for this 2x void shard event weekend. And we just had a 2x ancient shard event weekend 2 weeks ago, which means you probably don't have a ton of ancient shards. But your only option is really going to be to try to complete at least the first half of that summon rush with whatever ancient shards you've put together, and then mystery shards. And we know that during a summon rush, ancient shards get you very few points. So it's going to be difficult to complete that summon rush, even the first half of that summon rush, with the resources we have. Had the event started on Thursday the 6th, it would have been an easy fusion for every challenge player, I think, who's saved any kind of resources to complete. But now with this swap, you might have to think about spending some sacred shards, not during the 2x event weekend, but just on that summon rush weekend. Like whenever it comes, you might have to spend 2 there and hope that you can get enough ancient shards and mystery shards to get the rest of the points to complete the first half of the summon rush. So that's the first drawback. That's the first thing that got me to question whether or not I wanted to actually complete this fusion on my challenge account. I don't like the layout. I'm probably going to go for this champion chase. One other consideration is like, do you want to wait an additional 2 weeks to pull your Morag? Do you want to wait an additional 2 weeks to pull your Sabbatha? Because you can get account help from them right now. You can get progress on your roster, on your account, by pulling them this weekend as opposed to waiting another 2 weeks. I've already been waiting 2 weeks to pull Sabbatha, almost 3 weeks, and I've been waiting probably a week to pull my Morag. So to keep all of that roster value on the bench and not benefiting my account also doesn't feel good. So that's another reason. That's maybe the second reason why I'm thinking maybe I want to just pull them during this champion chase, get some value right now, and then just save my sacred shards for the 2x event. That might be a way to go. So what I'd like to do is actually show you the calendar of the last fusion, at least the last fusion that I could find, that started on a Monday, because this is also going to impact how you view this fragment event. This is the fragment event calendar for the Brugard Jeroboam fusion back in September and October of 2024. This was the only fusion calendar I could find from 2024 that actually started on a Monday. It's the last one that seemed to do so. Now, one of the things about a fragment event, especially that starts on a Monday, is you need 15 days to complete this calendar. It's really likely we're going to get 15 days for this current calendar, rather than sometimes you can get as few as 12, although typically it's more like 13 or 14. But the reason you need 15 is because you need to complete the next weekend or the last weekend's shard events. And those typically go from Friday morning to Monday morning. So you have to go Monday to Monday. And so you get 15 days. Now, this impacts us in a few ways. But if you look at this calendar, the early aspect of it looks a lot like any fusion event that starts on a Thursday. You have, a dragon tournament here in this case, could be any dungeon tournament, and a champion training tournament. Those typically start on the first day. And then the second day, you get your dungeon divers. So normally you don't want to really do anything in the dungeon tournament that first day. You want to hold off, maybe just invest a little bit in champion training in this space, or you could hold off on that too. And the fusion event really doesn't start until the second day, which is the Friday. Well, that's a big difference, because here is the first shard event. Typically, that would be here. That means on Friday, you would be doing your first dungeon tournament, your champion training, your dungeon divers event, and your fragment event. But you can start with the fragment event. That's especially important if it is a champion chase tournament, or champion chase event, because if you're doing that, you can measure your resources, your shard resources, much more easily. Think about it this way. Let's say I'm pulling ancient shards for my champion chase tournament. My success rate, how many epics I hit, how many legendaries I hit, is going to impact how many shards I need to pull. And then maybe I can save some of those shards, if I get lucky, for the summon rush. In this case, you can see it's a hero's path, but let's assume this is a summon rush. I can save those shards for the summon rush. So literally the first event that I do can be that champion chase. And that's going to allow me to determine whether or not I want to continue to invest the resources all the way down. Because if I get unlucky with the champion chase, I can say, you know what, I'm not going to have the shards to complete this event, and I can back away. Now, let's say the first shard event was a summon rush. That would be a little bit different, because then you would have to spend those shards for the guaranteed points, right? You get points from the shards in that case. But again, then it's a known quantity. So in either situation, you've got an early event that you can invest in, and it's a relatively good bit of information that can help you plan the rest of the way. Now, there's still the variability of the champion chase tournament, but when you have the champion chase tournament on the second half, you can collect more shards. You can collect more fragment champions. You can work on those permanent fusions. You have a little bit more time to put your resources together for a champion chase on the back end. Doesn't have to be the worst thing in the world to have a champion chase on the second half versus a summon rush, but that's something to think about. Now, here for our current Esme fusion or fragment event, remember that this is happening on Monday, February 10th. And what that means is that this would be the 17th. This should be the 24th. And so on this Friday right here, 24, this is when we're going to get a 2x sacred event. Now, a 2x sacred event is going to be great. It's going to coincide with a summon rush in this case. Actually, let me get that right. No, it's going to coincide with the champion chase in this case. So down here, we're actually going to have a champion chase for this event, and this first one will be a summon rush. So just be aware of that the first one's likely to be a summon rush because they tend to alternate. Could they change that? Yes, they could. So when the actual events are all launched and announced, we'll make sure that this is how it plays out. But for right now, with imperfect information, this is what I'm trying to use to plan. So if I have the summon rush here, remember the summon rush, I need to spend my sacred shards. There's no way for me to complete even the first half of the summon rush without using sacred shards. So I have a 2x sacred shard event right here. I'm not going to have a lot of sacred shards left over. Even if I use the minimum, I might not have any sacred shards left over for the champion chase, which means I have to do the champion chase during a 2x weekend, but where everything that I'm going to pull is going to be 1x, right? It's either going to be ancient shards or it's going to be mystery shards. It'll probably be those 2 shards. Maybe I can pull 1 sacred shard if I can save it. But as a result, this champion chase is going to be relatively difficult to complete. And again, I don't have my high Khatun there. And do I want to wait an additional 2 weeks to pull my Sabbatha and any of my other fragment champions that I may get? So, or Morag. We also have Morag. So I'm delaying value on those champions. I'm losing the value of my 2x sacreds because I'm pulling them during the summon rush. And that seems like a loss of value. So the champion herself would have to offset that loss of value, right? And that's a lot of value to offset. So let's go ahead and take a look at the champion in terms of how is she going to benefit my particular challenge account and maybe your particular challenge account. I just want to refresh you with the memory of my roster in case you haven't seen it in a little while. So this is my current roster. I have food for another 6-star. So I do have a food for a 6-star ready to go, and I've just been holding on to it for an opportune time. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it during a champion training or if I was kind of waiting for some of these shard pulls to come through, the void shards that I'm going to be pulling during the 2x void shard event or the sacred shards that might come down the line during the fusion. But so I have Alice the Wanderer at 6 stars. I have Athel, obviously. I have Geomancer, Wukong, Ugo, and Tagore. That is the core of my roster. And I also have Anchorite down here, who is, I'm speculating, will be another champion that I'll take to 50 soon and then move on to 6 stars eventually. So Esme is a support champion. But if we look at what she actually does, let's think about how she could fit into this overall roster. So the A1 gives an increased attack. Now, I don't currently have an increased attack, but I'm going to be pulling Sabbatha from my fragment collector soon. She has an increased attack that goes up for a longer duration. There's an increased defense with it, and it's a little bit more reliable than putting it on an A1. I don't think an A1 increased attack is bad, by the way, and I'm not going to be saying that Esme is a bad champion here. I think she's slightly above average. I don't think she's a must-complete fusion, but she could certainly provide value for an early game account potentially, right? Depending on the circumstances. Now, the A2 is an AoE that has a 100% chance of a weaken debuff and a block buffs debuff for 2 turns. Now, the AoE weaken is very nice. Right now, it's a 75% chance. I would have to book her out in order to get it to 100% chance. Her entire kit only takes 10 books, which is not bad. That's not bad. But remember, I still have Alice, and I'm in the midst of booking her. So I still need like 6 or 7 more books for Alice, and then I would need an additional 10 potentially here. I could maybe avoid some on the A1. She's a support champion. I don't know that her A1 will hit super hard, so I don't really need books there necessarily. But we're still talking about a lot of legendary tomes. And remember, I am slow rolling my account, so I'm not getting access to a ton of legendary tomes. In addition, the block buffs debuff, I already have twice on my account. I have Ugo, who's got a block buffs, and I've got Wukong, who's got a block buffs. Now, Esme's in the third affinity, right? Wukong is spirit affinity and Ugo is magic affinity. So this would be a third affinity, but I don't know that you need 3 affinity block buffs champions. Now, she also decreases turn meter of all enemies by 20%, which I do think would be valuable. That's not a bad combo with the rest of my team. That's not something I'm getting a lot of in my roster currently, but it's not critical. Again, this is on a 4-turn cooldown until it's booked. It's not a huge decreased turn meter. And so the weaken and the decreased turn meter are good. They're good, but there is some overlap here that means I'm losing some value if I employ Esme in my roster, right? Now, the A3 increases accuracy and increased speed. I already have Tagore for increased speed. The increased accuracy would be nice. That would absolutely be nice. And it also has a 75% chance, which books to 100% chance of removing all buffs from all enemies. I actually feel like this is the better of the 2 skills. Increased accuracy is something that could help my Ugo. It could help my Alice. It could help my Geomancer. So this is a buff that could actually be beneficial. And in addition, increased speed, even though I'm already getting it from Tagore, that's not bad. But the big thing here would be removing all buffs from all enemies, right? That's really nice. That's really nice. But again, now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, well, I still have Wukong, who also buff strips. So there's a lot of overlap here. The only unique ability here on my roster would be the increased accuracy, which honestly, with the pinpoint dungeon, like with the event dungeon available, I'm not having trouble with accuracy this time around. I'm having trouble with other things, but I'm not really having trouble getting accuracy into my roster. So the passive effect of the passive, when hit, has a 15% chance of randomly changing the attacker's critical hits to... I don't care about that at all. I really don't. I don't think it's a good passive anyway. The active effect, whenever this champion is hit, increases the turn meter of the ally with the highest attack by 50%. That's very nice, and I would like that. And then finally, the increases ally speed in all battles aura of 19% would be very nice. But I'm getting Haikatune the week before anyway. Like, I'm getting her in a few days, so I'm going to have that aura. So if we look at the entire kit based against my roster, what are the unique abilities? An AoE weaken, which is good. I won't say it's not good. An AoE weaken, a decreased turn meter, which is solid, and an increased accuracy buff. And everything else she brings, I already have in my roster. She is Force Affinity, which would be beneficial, but I don't really see a burning need for me to get this champion. And because of what we were talking about with the schedule and the way that the Summon Rush and Champion Chase happen, it feels like it's going to be very expensive. Now, I could play the speculative game. I could try to complete the first few events so that when I get to that Summon Rush, that first Summon Rush, I can decide if I have enough resources, and then if I don't, I can back out. Unfortunately, this isn't a classic fusion where I could get value like I got out of Sabbatha during the Mad Hatter event. All I would get is some fragments that I could convert towards Maud, but that's not the worst thing in the world. Plus, there will be rewards in those events and tournaments that I can collect, and it's like double dipping or triple dipping, which is never a bad thing. But ultimately, I feel like she's not bringing enough oomph to my account. She's not unique enough. Probably the one thing that I would really, really like here is the AoE weaken. That's probably the best option for me out of her entire kit, but I don't have the books to make her as effective as she would need to be, I think, for me to really want her, right? Alice is better. Alice is better than Esme. She's better for my roster, and she's already built. So if we come back here and look, I know that this Friday, the 7th, is going to be a 2x Void Shard event. I can just pull those during the Champion Chase, get a really nice triple dip there, right? Because I'm not just pulling the Void Shards, I'm getting the 2x event, plus I'm getting the Champion Chase. And that is also getting me teacup points towards the current Titan event, which is not bad, because I'm actually doing pretty well there. So if I pull that, then I can wait 2 weeks and pull during the 2x Sacred Shard event. That'll be during another Champion Chase. I'll get some points there for some value. And just avoid the fusion altogether, and that's going to allow me the freedom to use my resources as I need them. And hopefully, pulling Sabbatha early, pulling Haikatune this weekend, pulling Morag, potentially, if I want to, would give me a lot of value over the course of the next 2.5 weeks, rather than waiting all the way until the end of the fusion event for that champion chase. So all the signs seem to be pointing towards skipping this fusion, which I really did not expect. I planned this account around the idea that I was preparing for this first fusion. And in fact, if we look at my account again, I am completely prepared for this. I can do this relatively easily. I currently have 4 Sacred Shards of Primal, 3 Voids, 14 Ancients, and 761 Mystery Shards. By the time it comes around that I need to use these shards, I can have more. I have a challenge here that will result in an additional Void Shard. I'm going to get that this weekend. But I believe that there's a 5th Sacred Shard that is available to me. I really thought it was in the challenges, but maybe it's the one that's behind this. There might be a Void Shard, and then on the next part, it's a Sacred Shard. So maybe that's what I was thinking. But I still have enough shards, I think, to complete a Summon Rush, right? I could pull my Sacred Shards and my Mystery Shards and complete the first half of a Summon Rush, which is usually around 3,000 to 3,150 points. I have enough. This would be 2,000. Now I'm up to 2,761, right? I'm also saving gems if I need to buy Ancient Shards, and I could invest my Ancient Shards in that if I had to. In addition, for the Champion Chase, right, I've got Relic Keeper is going to be fused at that point. I can potentially maybe get one of these epics here on Razin. I can get all of these rares plus fuse Broadmaw. I also have 2 Sabbathas. I have High Katoon coming, and I also have Morag. Those alone would get me very far in a champion chase, and perhaps with a few fragments with a few shards with my Void Shards, I would have enough. I should have maybe 5 Void Shards. I think, in fact, there is a login Void Shard coming. Yeah, there's a Void login coming. So I would have enough Void Shards maybe to put myself over the top in terms of champion chase points, complete the champion chase entirely, still have enough Sacreds for the Summon Rush. Maybe I have to complete that with Mystery Shards and Ancient Shards. And then the rest of it is just energy. And I've been doing nothing but saving my energy refills for the entirety of my account. So I've got something like 3, 5, 10, 13 of these at least, plus all of the, or 14 of these, plus the energy from all of the various locations that we have. I'm well prepared. I feel really, really comfortable about the ability to complete this fusion. But I don't think I want it. I don't think I want it. I would love if it were like an Armand's like last year or something on that power level. That would be game changing. It would be account changing. But she's just not that kind of champion. She's good. And if you can get her duo, she could be excellent. But is it value for the challenge? I just don't see it. Now remember that my whole approach here is not that I'm going for challenge points. It's that I'm trying to play this account in the best free-to-play way possible. And that strategy of completing the first fusion was just theoretical, right? The idea was I want to be prepared for that in case I can get value there. But now I'm thinking a 2x Void Shard event, use my Voids. A 2x Sacred Shard event, use my Sacreds. Get any of the resources I can from the fusion events and tournaments that are happening, but don't go all in on this fusion because I don't really think I can use the resources in the most effective way. If I do, there's still a chance of failure with the redistribution of the Summon Rushes and Champion Chases from the way I expected. I just think it's better for me to pull Sabbatha now, pull Morag now, pull my 2x Voids, my 2x Sacreds on those weekends, and hope I get a good legendary from one of those pulls. And if I do, then Esme will just fade into the background and I won't even care. So that is going to be my approach, I believe. The recording of this video convinced me of it. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with me. Should I pass on this fusion, or do you think I should still stick to the plan and go whole hog and try to complete the Esme fragment event? And then just because I'm curious, let me know what you're deciding as well, especially on your challenge account, but even on your main account. Okay, that is it for me today. Thanks so much for hanging out. I have been Colred. I will see you in another video soon.